Zalai, head of the Freight and Trade Alliance. Paul, thanks so much for your time. Just explain the economic impact of a work stoppage on a large container ship terminal, kind of like the ones we have here in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Fremantle.
Yeah, so DP World, you saw the footage there from Nikolai. They commissioned an independent report suggesting it's costing the industry about $84 million a week. We believe that's actually quite conservative, just on the anecdotal evidence from our members. We're seeing, a lot of importers missing contracts, whether they were to supply to the likes of major retailers. To maintain those contracts, quite often they're using air freight. And then we've got the exporters. Again, as we said, we've got the grapes, but it's every commodity you can think of right around the country. Our estimation is probably closer to about $20 million a day that the problem is causing.
And these issues began back in October, so the cumulative impact is obviously in the billions now.
Yeah, well, that's right. So again, the whole concept of protected industrial action isn't to try and cripple an economy. It's meant to cause enough pain to get the employer to the bargaining table and facilitate negotiations. I think one of our members described it as death by 1,000 cuts, and I think that's what we're experiencing now. Because the protected industrial action has gone on for so long, we're starting to see some serious consequences. We've got a lot of the major international shipping lines now what they call blank sailing or cancelling particular sailings out of Asia and China in particular, and that's a big problem. Then also those that are coming to Australian ports, we find that they're bypassing the intended port. For example, they might bypass Sydney, discharge import cargo in Melbourne, and then the importer has to work out how they get the cargo back to the originally planned destination. Our exporters have got it a lot harder again. So they don't have the predictability that those vessels are actually going to come. And they're in regional centres, most of them using rail. They have to book time slots with those rail operators. And then, whether or not they use it, they have to pay for it. So we've got a lot of cargo that ends up at the port and has to be stored in metropolitan Sydney somewhere and then a secondary move to the terminal for export.
So this week we've got 2-hour work stoppages. So how long does it normally take to unload your average container ship? And if there is now these two stoppages, what's it blowing out to?
Yeah, look, the 2-hour stoppages in itself are not crippling. It's all the other bans you put on top of it. So you've got the situation now where overtime won't be accepted, or they might have bans of not servicing the road or rail. And again, it just throws out the whole supply chain. And just picture yourself as a transport operator, using your trucks to pick up or deliver containers to the wharf. Just that lack of knowledge of being able to plan in advance, to make deliveries or pick up cargo. So all of these small protected industrial action that the union is taking, it all adds up. So we did have a reprieve, as you said, over the weekend and this week. Some of those protected industrial action have been reduced, but it's still adding up and still causing pain.
Now, we've got a chart we can put up, you produced showing terminal access charges at DP World, and you can see import and export charges here on the screen. And what really jumps out at me is just the increase in 2024. It just seems like fees are just going through the roof. So what does that mean for the cost of goods?
Yeah, look, it's a kick in the guts for importers and exporters. When we had this protected industrial action extending, we approached DP World and said, well, could you waive this charge for a period of time as some form of compensation to your importers and exporter clients? They declined that. And then last week we said, okay, all right, if you're not even going to waive it, these increases that are scheduled for the 1st of February, can you defer it? Again, that was declined. So, there's been a lot of spotlight on the unions and their claims of 8% increase, which, I'll leave it for other commentators to say whether that's appropriate or not. But the increases from DP World, particularly on our exports, is up to 52%.
Wow.
So, I think, we heard what Nikolai said there, but they're no angels in this either. Both parties, I think, have got a lot to answer to.
Paul Zalai from the Freight and Trade Alliance, thanks so much for your time. We'll obviously have to keep monitoring this because it is clearly a real ongoing issue.
Thanks a lot.
Victoria's government